and then also as he kind of figures out how Henry reacts, because one day he's pleasant and then one day he's totally volatile. Wow. Words are hard. Hi everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with my August haul. Today we are doing a haul, like we usually do at the beginning of every single month. I have many books to show you, as I usually do. This has just become my life now, but a good chunk of them did come from a bargain bookstore that I went to, so we do have a chunk of those that we did buy secondhand, but the rest of them, I don't even, one friend made me buy them, or I finished a series, or like there's lots of reasons why we picked up some of these. So without further ado, let's just get right on into the books I picked up. So the first book I picked up was actually the only historical fiction I picked up from this place. Shocking, I know, considering the last 2 months were just ridiculous with the amount of historical fiction I picked up. But we do have a Joanna Lindsey book. This one is Love Me Forever, with this stunning step back here. And it is a, like, partially a Highland romance, I think, because it follows our main character, Kimberly, who is still mourning her mother, and her dad just wants to get her married off because it's the last hurdle for him to marry the person that he wants to, like, marry and get married again. And so she's really bitter about this and doesn't want to get married and hates the whole, like, married for money and gold digging aspects of this. And then I think she meets the guy she's supposed to marry, but the back is a little confusing because it makes it sound that, like, the guy that her dad wants her to marry, she's against marrying, but he has his eyes set on somebody else who's already married, I think is what's happening. And so it sounds like craziness, and I don't know. It sounds great. It's Joanna Lindsey. I'm just love this cover. It kind of matches all my other ones. So I decided to pick it up. And we like a good old Highland romance, so I'll take it. So the next book that I ended up picking up was a fun contemporary romance, and that is The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. Had my eye on this one for a while and glad that I was able to find it and pick it up. This follows our main character. I believe it is Carolina. She's a wedding planner and she gets left at the altar. Time has passed and she and the best man from her wedding, aka her groom's brother, whose name is Max, they have to kind of, their companies are pairing up to do something, and so they have to get together and kind of partner on this presentation. And it's just all of that, like being left at the altar, but also like this guy, the brother, is kind of the reason the groom left. He kind of convinced his brother to not go through with the wedding. So we'll see what happens there, but clearly it's going to be a romance between the two of them, and I am very excited. The next one you have already seen because I'm planning on reading it this month, and that is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This is the author of Beach Read. This is her second book, I believe. Basically just follows two best friends as they go on vacation and then kind of fall in love. I've heard incredible things about this from tons of different people, so I'm really excited to give it a shot and actually finally have read something by Emily Henry instead of just collecting them all. So I've also picked up a first volume of a manga that sounds really interesting, and that is A Sign of Affection by Sue Morishite. But it follows our main character, Yuki, who is in college, but she is deaf, and so she's used to communicating with sign language and her phone. And so she's on the train, and a tourist who only speaks English asks her for directions, and she kind of freaks out because not only is he not signing, but like she can't communicate with him because it's a different language. And then this guy steps in because he can speak 3 different languages and helps her out. And then they decide, I think, to go on a date. This is kind of a vague-ish kind of plot line on the back since it is the first volume, but it does sound really cute, and I like the aspect of kind of like that barrier of language and seeing how that's going to work with him and her, because I don't know if he can speak sign language. It doesn't say on the back, but if he can't, there's going to be that language barrier for her. And I'm really interested to see where this is going to go, but it sounds like a very cute romance, and it also sounds like a contemporary. And we all know I prefer contemporary over fantasy mangas, so I'm excited to give this a shot. So the next book I picked up is one that I've had my eye on for a very long time, and I'm not even kidding you. I think I saw it for like $2 and I couldn't believe it, but it is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel. This is a historical fiction book during the time of King Henry VIII, and this follows Thomas Cromwell, which is one of his cronies, and I think the one that stays around the longest, but I think it follows the character of Thomas. It looks like it's in first person, so I think it does follow Thomas as he kind of steps into King Henry's court. But I've never read a book that's set during this time that doesn't follow like one of the wives or something like that. Like this is focused on his court, so it's going to be a lot more politically driven, I think. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see it from this character's perspective, because every time I've read something about King Henry's time, it always kind of paints Cromwell almost in like a negative light. And so I'm just curious to see what this book is going to do, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be really interesting. I don't know when I'm going to get around to it. It's not very, very tiny, but it was super cheap and I couldn't believe it. The next one is also one that I'm gonna see if I can get to in the month of September. You would have already seen it, and that is Blood and Promise, the first in the Fae Rising trilogy by Miranda Lynn. Again, don't really know what this is about. It does follow Fae courts though, so that's fantastic. Honestly, it gives me ACOTAR vibes and I'm so down for it. But I picked this up because my friend Taylor, who owns Kindness and Candles, did a candle based on this series because she's obsessed with this series. And I had my eye on this series for a while, but like when she finally did that candle, it was like the final step that I just like pushed that I needed to actually do it. So I did only pick up the first one just to see if I like it. I think I will, and then we'll, you know, pick up some more. But I'm planning on reading this in September, so stay tuned. But like, I can't even tell you how stunning these are. Like the chapter heads are all, I'm gonna drop this book. The chapter heads are all totally different. Like that's a sword, and I definitely saw one in here that, yeah, this one's got a forest. I'm really excited to give this one a shot, but it's about Fae. And honestly, I feel like that's all I needed to know. Next two I'm going to do together because they're part of the same series, and this is going to be confusing, but let me explain. It is volume 4 and volume 6 of Dreaming Sun. I did buy volume 5. It just had to come from like a separate third party, so it hasn't made its way to me quite yet. So hopefully we'll get it sometime in September. But this is a series I've been talking about for a while because I read it a couple of months ago, or started it a couple of months ago, and have loved it. This is just a fun contemporary romance kind of series that follows our main character, Shirahama, who kind of is tired of living at home. Her father has remarried and they just had a kid, and she feels like she's not like being loved and accepted there, so she decides to run away and meets this man in the park who says, "Oh, I've got a place for you to stay, but I have a couple of conditions. One, tell me kind of why you're running away, help me find some keys, and then also have a dream and fall in love." And she's like, "Sounds good to me." So she gets involved with them, and there's two other boys who live in this house that go to her school, and so it's just kind of their friendships and romances and like all of the craziness that is this series. It's just pure fun, but picked up this part of the series. Just slowly accumulating these is what's happening. The next two I'm going to do together as well because they are again part of the same series, and that is A Heart So Fierce and Broken and A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kemmerer. This is 2 and 3 of the Cursebreaker series, which I read the first one, I think it was in July. I did it for that like hyped vlog that I was doing, so I'll leave it linked above if you're curious. But I read that book and honestly, like, it devoured my life. I was so invested. And I found these two for relatively cheap online, and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna read them eventually. So I picked them up. I've heard mixed things about them, but I am excited. But this series is basically following a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, where we follow our main character who has basically been taken out of her time and plopped into this other universe where there's this prince and he is cursed, and she's trying to help him break the curse a little bit. And so this is just the story that continues, but I'm really excited because of the person we follow in the second book is like one of my favorites in the series. So I had to pick the rest of this up. So speaking of finishing series, I did pick up Gods and Monsters by Shelby Mahurin, which is the third in her Serpent and Dove trilogy. Now I almost didn't pick this up because I like adore the first book. I thought it was really, really good. And then the second one was a huge letdown for me personally. But I've heard that this is A lot of people find this the best in the series, and a lot of people I've heard talk about this one. I know that Shelby said that this was the one that she's the most proud of and excited to release out of the trilogy, and I figured I'd read 2 out of the 3. I might as well continue. So I do have this. I'm not sure when I'm going to get around to it. Maybe in October. It feels appropriate since I read both of the other books and the last 2 Octobers. The first one follows Lou, who is a witch, and Reed, who is a witch hunter, and due to some of the circumstances they find themselves in, they are forced to get married. And obviously Reed doesn't know that Lou is a witch, but it's their romance, which is just, I love it so much. But I'm excited to continue because I don't remember exactly what happened to the second one, but I remember how it ended, and I remember being so bitter because, like, I had to wait a whole year until the next one. So yeah, I almost didn't get it, but I decided to just give it a shot. So the next one I picked up was the final book in the Bridgerton series, which is On the Way to the Wedding by Julia Quinn. This one specifically follows Gregory, who I think is the youngest. There are 8 books in the series. Each book follows a different sibling, and this one just happens to be Gregory's romance story. Do I know what it's about? No, I do not, but it's Bridgerton. And it's the only one I didn't have, and it bothered me that I had all but one, so I just went ahead and bought the last one. Although I will say, this being not a sticker, I don't like it. The next book is one that was kindly gifted to me by my lovely friend Lauren, and she accidentally got this book box in the mail and said, "This sounds like your thing," and I said, "I think you're right," so it's now in my possession. And that is Daughter of Sparta by Claire M. Andrews. There's another book out here called The Daughters of Sparta by a totally different author, and I get these confused all of the time. But this came in the Once Upon a Book Club, so it came with a bunch of stuff that, like, you're supposed to read when you get to certain parts in this book. Like, for example, I know one's on page 3, so, like, it's got this little sticky note here that tells me to, like, open up the thing. This is a James Patterson Presents book, and I do like the James Patterson Presents, I don't even know what that's called. Label, maybe? It's Greek mythology, so thank you. Sparta forged her into a deadly weapon. Now the gods need her to save the world. Oh, I see Artemis's name, and I see Mount Olympus, and I see the Sphinx, and I see a lot of Greek mythology names, and I'm really excited about it. It sounds like this girl has to, like, fight for Mount Olympus to save Mount Olympus. Maybe. But it sounds fantastic. Oh, even the, like, chapter heads, if I can find one to show you, give me, like, very much Greek mythology, like, feel. Ooh, I'm a fan. Don't know when I'll get around to this. But thanks, Lauren. I'm sorry you had to get a box you didn't want, but I appreciate you giving me the box you didn't want, because I appreciate it. Alright, the next book I am so excited to have my hands on because I want to reread this because I know I want to tab it. And that is Sleeping Around by Morgan Vega. This is a book that I read in July, so you would have seen my thoughts on this. The author graciously gave me a copy of her book and asked if I would read it, and I said very much so. So I'll definitely leave her channel down below because she does have a channel here on the YouTube. But I adored this book, so I will also leave my Goodreads review if you want to go more in depth. Follow our main character, Corey, who is in the foster care system, and she is aging out of the foster care system, and this book follows her in her first year in college, and nothing goes right. Like, her roommate situation is just, it doesn't end the way that she wants it to end, and so at some point she ends up having to sleep around from people's couches, people's mattresses in their rooms. Like, she is just, like, going from place to place because she doesn't have a permanent place to live. She also is a violinist, so you have that aspect of it, which is fascinating. And I just really loved it because it gave me, like, I was reading this and I just felt like I had gone back to college. Like, there were lots of situations in here that I'm like, I didn't get into that situation exactly, but that definitely reminds me of other situations I got into, or that reminds me of things that I've heard from people I went to college with. So, like, this I just feel like would resonate with a lot of different people, especially people who, like, have just gone to college and are, like, stressed about their first year and not fitting in and all that kind of stuff. I feel like they will be very seen in this book. I highly recommend getting it. It came out at the beginning of August, and, like, please go get your hands on it because it is worth it. The next 2 books I'm gonna do together because they are part of the same series, and that is 1 and 2 in the Frost Heart series by Jamie Littler, which is Frost Heart and then Frost Heart Escape from Aurora. Now, somehow I got a non-spine copy and then a very pretty spine copy, and I'm pretty sure I ordered the 3rd one, which is coming out later this year, with the non-spine, like the non-pretty edges. So I don't really know what happened, but somehow I got a pretty one, which I'm not upset about. But I picked these up because Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, this is his favorite series. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I do like these UK covers, but he's doing a read-along of these for August, September, and then I believe it comes out in November, and I had full plans to participate. And then here we are in September, and I definitely haven't started this series yet. So I don't know when I'm going to get around to it, but I do plan to. Honestly, this might be a Believe-a-thon pick, depending on how this rest of the next couple of months goes. But it basically follows our main character, whose name I have forgotten, Ash. And he lives in this village where you can't sing, I think is the thing, because like singing reminds them of these monsters, and then like he has this power, and then he goes on this adventure to find his parents. Is that at all remotely right? He's trying to master his powers and find his family. So this just sounds like a fun adventure, and I'm excited to get into it at some point. Like we all knew I was going to get a copy of this at some point, because basically anything Gavin says is really good, I immediately buy. I trust him wholeheartedly with middle grade. So yeah, I picked these up. Aren't they just so pretty though? And then the third one that's coming out is red. I'm so excited. The next couple of books that I'm going to do are books that I got in subscription boxes. So if you haven't seen my Unplugged Book Box or my Abraxas July box, I think is what it was, these next two books are going to be those books, so fair warning if you don't want to know what those are. For the Unplugged Book Box, I am a rep for them. I do get their adult boxes, and this was my first one, and it was stunning. And that is She Who Became the Sun by Shelby Parker Chan. Now, this is the normal cover, but it did come with an exclusive cover as well. I haven't decided which one I like more, so I just kind of flip back and forth. And this is just the one that happened to be the one that was out. But it follows our two main characters, a boy and a girl who I believe are siblings, and the boy has been, fated to have this great, fate. He's going to have a great life, do great things, and the daughter's been fated with nothingness. And so at some point during this story, they are on the road and they get attacked by bandits and the boy dies. So the sister takes his identity because she wants to be great. And it does sound like it's a martial fantasy, a little bit more historical fiction than fantasy, I would say. And it is set in the Mongolian Empire, that time frame. But it just sounds really interesting. And I don't have a whole lot of historical fiction that's surrounding Asian mythology and Asian history and things like that. So we need to get more. And I've heard one person that I follow online talk about this, like not as in like, oh look, I'm excited about this book, but like has actually read it and give their opinions about it. So if you read this, let me know. I'd love to know your opinions. But I'm excited to pick this up at some point, and it looks great. And then the next book that I have here is my Abraxas July box. It does come from the UK, so it gets to me like the month after. And this one is The Immortal Game by Talia Rothschild and A.C. Harvey. This is another Greek mythology retelling. I'm very excited about this. But it follows our main character, whose name, oh, I always get this wrong. I think it's Galeen, but she's the daughter of Poseidon. And she does something and that makes Olympus really mad, and so they kick her out, and then she discovers this plot that's actually gonna like destroy Olympus, and so she does her best to not let that happen. So it sounds really interesting. I love this kind of like sea goddess feel to it. That's what I got in that box, and I am very excited. All of the Greek mythology things are happening right now, and I'm very happy about them. The next one I picked up was this stunning copy of Heart of the Raven Prince by Sonia Odette. I did read Curse of the Wolf King this past month and loved it so much. It's the first in this series, which is called Entangled with Fae, but they're all standalones. They just happen to be taking place in the same world, so you can read them in whatever order you want. That one was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This one is a Cinderella retelling, and she's just announced that she's writing the third one, which is a Little Mermaid retelling. But I got these hardbacks from her Etsy because A, they're signed, and B, I just like being able to buy straight from the author, but also these hardcovers are so pretty. And while I don't really know what this one's about, I adored Curse of the Wolf King. It was just incredible, and I love her writing. I think it's so good. So I'm so excited to continue with this series, even though there's like companion series. I'm so excited. Like, she's gonna be by far a very quick favorite. So I had to pick up the next one because this one like just came out, and I think the next one's coming out in December. So we all know in January I'll be reading that one. But it's so pretty. And then the next couple of books we picked up from Barnes & Noble, because they were doing that like half-priced book haul thing that they did. So I picked up this chunk, which is The President's Daughter, which is the second in this series by Bill Clinton and James Patterson. The first one is The President is Missing. I read that because I bought it for my husband for his birthday a couple of years ago, and he loved it, so I read it, and I loved it. So we picked this one up. It just came out, so we're probably going to have to get the first one in, like, a hardback as well. So it does follow this guy who used to be president. I feel like it's the president from that first book in the series, but his daughter gets kidnapped, and so he goes to whatever lengths he needs to get her back. The last one was great, so we definitely picked this one up because it was, like, significantly cheaper. I mean, do you see this large hardback that came out, like, 2 months ago? Got it for half price. The next one I picked up because of Taylor. I'm looking at you because I know you're watching. And that is the Bromance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams. This is the first in a series. I think there are 4 out, or at least there are 3, and there's 1 coming out soon. But I've had my eye on this for a while, and then she read it and said, oh my gosh, you're gonna love it. And when she does that, I just kind of assume that she is correct because she's never been wrong before, and I picked it up. But basically, we follow our main character, Gavin, who is in baseball? Yes, Major League Baseball. And his marriage is just, like, disintegrating in front of his eyes. And so he joins this secret club of guys who are reading historical romances in order to kind of woo their wives and kind of get them back. And so that's what he does. I love this cover, by the way. You can see, like, the book in his pocket. But it sounds like a lot of fun. I think each book in the series follows, like, a different person in this club, and this is just the first one in the series. And, yeah, we're gonna give it a chance at some point. Don't know when we're gonna get around to it. I'm gonna try for October, because it definitely didn't work in September. But we'll see what happens. So the next, well, the last book actually in this haul that I picked up was Dance with the Fae Prince by Elise Kova. This is the second in the Married to Magic series. I read A Deal with the Elf King a couple of months ago and just loved it. It was kind of like a Hades and Persephone retelling a little bit, slash Beauty and the Beast. This one, I'm not sure if it's based on anything in particular. Oh, Psyche and Eros as well as Cinderella. Oh, that sounds fantastic. We follow our main character, Katerina, who basically is being forced to marry this guy, and this guy turns out to be the Fae Prince. And it's their kind of marriage to romance. It's almost like a marriage of convenience and then real feeling, because he goes into this marriage saying, like, I'm not gonna fall in love, and she's like, sounds good, and then of course, you know, they fall in love. So I really don't know a whole lot about what this is about, but it's set in the same world as that one. And I loved the first one so much. I could not wait to get my hands on the second one. I'm like, look at that cover. I'm really excited to pick this one up at some point in the future, but I've loved that book in the series, and I'm just kind of like now invested in anything in the series. So those are the 22 books that I picked up in August. I'm really excited about, oh, actually all of these. I'm very excited about all of these. So hopefully I'll be able to read some of these soon. I do have a couple on my September TBR, which you guys would have already seen, and I've got some that I just got, like, basically I was completing series at this point of, like, got some new releases, and I'm so excited about them. But I hope that you enjoyed, and if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, please let me know your thoughts. I would love to know, especially She Who Became the Sun. Like, seriously, if anyone's read this, tell me. I need to know people's thoughts. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so don't forget to go check all of that out. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.